Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep today into peak physical efficiency, really sorting through the science on high-intensity training, figuring out the best way to combine lifting and cardio, and maybe most importantly for a lot of people, which performance enhancers actually, work.
Yeah, it's about giving you that shortcut to understanding what's backed by evidence. You shared a really dense stack of research here, and the goal is basically to show how you can leverage minimal time for maximum gain. And it all kind of centers around this one really critical health metric.
Right, VO2 max. And the stat you pulled on this is, honestly, it's kind of staggering. VO2 max, which is basically how efficiently your body uses oxygen, right? It has this inverse relationship with dying from anything, basically, all-cause mortality. The research showed people at the top end, the elite VO2 max performers, see an 80% reduction compared to the lowest group. 80?
Exactly, an 80% reduction. It's not just a small tweak to your health. That stat alone, I think, really makes optimizing your VO2 max probably the single most important thing you can focus on for health span, for longevity. It's the measure of your body's engine, its core capacity.
Okay, so if it's the engine, let's define it a bit more. What exactly is VO2 max measuring?
It's looking at how well three major systems work together under maximum stress. So your cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels, your pulmonary system, your lungs, and then your mitochondrial system, which is, the energy factories inside your cells. How well do all those process and use oxygen when you're going all out?
Okay, and the bad news is it drops off.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does naturally decline. We're talking about 10 to 15% per decade once you get past your, say, late 20s to mid 40s, somewhere in there.
Oof, that's a pretty significant biological clock ticking away there.
It is. But the really good news, the incredible news, is that exercise, especially the right kind of exercise, can seriously slow that down, or even, in some cases, reverse the decline.
How do we measure it accurately? Is it just the lab test?
Well, the gold standard is still that lab test, treadmill, mask, the whole setup. It's precise but expensive.
Yeah, not something most of us are doing regularly. What about wearables? Smartwatches and fitness trackers. Are they useful at all?
They're getting better for tracking your own trends over time. Yeah, the high-quality ones are, I'd say, directionally useful. The data we looked at suggests maybe a 10% margin of error, roughly, which is often good enough to see if your training is actually improving things.
Okay, good enough is useful, which leads us nicely into efficiency and high-intensity interval training, HIIT. For people who are always short on time, this seems like the answer. The research suggests you can get similar VO2 max bumps from short, hard bursts compared to like hours of steady zone 2 cardio.
That really is the key efficiency hack here. You don't need those 3 to 4 hours a week of zone 2 if your primary goal is VO2 max improvement and you're time crunched. Now, why does HIIT work so well for this? The main limiting factor for VO2 max between people is usually maximal cardiac output.
So how much blood your heart can pump out per minute, basically.
Exactly. It's your max heart rate times your stroke volume, how much blood per beat. HIIT is just a really potent way to push and improve that cardiac output, makes the heart stronger, more efficient.
Forces it to adapt. Makes sense.
That's the central adaptation, yeah.
Okay.
But you also get peripheral ones happening out in the muscles, things like more mitochondria, those energy factories, and better capillary density, more tiny blood vessels feeding those muscles oxygen.
And it goes even deeper, right? Down to the cellular level. I found the stuff on autophagy fascinating. Cellular cleanup.
Yeah, autophagy. It's your body's internal recycling program clearing out damaged cell parts. And high-intensity exercise turns out to be a more powerful trigger for autophagy in muscles than even just fasting overnight, which is pretty amazing. And that happens even if you eat before the workout.
Wow. Okay. And what about brain fuel during intense exercise? Can you unpack the lactate shuttle theory a bit? This idea that lactate isn't just waste?
Right, that's a big shift in thinking. Lactate, produced by working muscles, isn't just metabolic waste. It's actually a really valuable fuel source. And during intense exercise, when things are metabolically stressful, the brain can actually take up and use lactate very effectively, maybe even more readily than glucose in those moments. Some estimates suggest lactate could be providing up to a third of the brain's energy during really hard efforts.
Huh. Maybe that explains that feeling of mental clarity some people get after a really tough workout, like the brain got supercharged.
Could be part of it, like switching to rocket fuel, as you put it. Now, sticking with this theme of efficiency, especially for listeners who think they have no time, we have to talk about VLP.
VLP. Vigorous intermittent physical activities. Okay, this is the really mind-blowing part for me. You're telling me things like, I don't know, running up a few flights of stairs quickly a few times a day. That actually counts. That it moves the needle.
It absolutely seems to. You're tapping into that high-intensity zone, even if just for, say, 60 seconds. The data we looked at used accelerometers on people, many of whom didn't even consider themselves exercisers. And getting just 3 to 4 total minutes a day of this VLPA-style activity was linked to a huge drop, like 25 to 30% in all-cause mortality risk.
3 to 4 minutes total, spread throughout the day. That is incredibly empowering.
Isn't it? And if they managed to get up to about 9 minutes total per day, the reduction in cardiovascular mortality risk was closer to 50%. The fact that these benefits showed up even in self-proclaimed non-exercisers is huge. It shows you don't necessarily need a formal gym session to get significant health benefits from intensity.
Okay, so minutes matter. Intensity matters. What about structure if you were doing formal workouts? Combining weights and cardio concurrent training. Does the order matter?
Right, the SE versus ES question. Strength then endurance, or endurance then strength. Good news first. For improving your VO2 max, the order doesn't seem to make a difference. Your cardio fitness gets better either way.
Okay, that simplifies things. But what if my main goal is getting stronger, lifting heavier?
Then the order does seem to matter, based on the evidence. Doing strength first, then endurance, SE. So lifting before your run or cycle tends to lead to slightly better strength gains, particularly in the lower body, things like knee flexion, knee extension strength.
So lift heavy first if you want maximum strength results from that session.
That seems to be the takeaway, yeah. And this advantage, this SE benefit, seems most noticeable in a couple of groups, according to the reviews, older adults and women. Also, it shows up more clearly in studies longer than about 8 weeks, with training maybe twice a week or more.
What about the old interference effect? The idea that doing cardio will kill your strength gains. Is that something most people need to worry about?
For the average person just trying to get fit and strong, probably not much. The interference effect seems pretty small, maybe even negligible for general fitness goals. Now, if you're a serious strength athlete aiming for every last percentage point, then yeah, separating the sessions by maybe a few hours is often recommended, just to be safe.
Good to know. Okay, moving slightly away from the workout itself, let's talk about a foundational piece, especially for endurance, that might get missed: iron.
Oh, absolutely critical, and often overlooked, particularly in female athletes, but really relevant for anyone feeling unexplained fatigue despite training well. We saw that study on young women, 18 to 26, showing a really strong link, a 0.7 correlation, which is high between low serum ferritin and lower VO2 max.
Can you define ferritin simply? Why is that the marker?
Think of ferritin as your body's iron storage protein. It reflects your total iron reserves. Iron is essential for hemoglobin in your red blood cells, which is what carries oxygen. So if your iron stores, your ferritin are low, you simply can't transport oxygen effectively to your working muscles. It directly limits your aerobic capacity.
Makes total sense. So if you're hitting a wall with endurance training, getting your ferritin checked is a smart move before just blaming the training plan.
Absolutely, you need the raw materials to be there. Low iron is like trying to run a factory with no supplies.
All right, let's shift gears to the big one. The supplement scorecard. There are so many products marketed for performance. What actually works?
Okay, but first, the mandatory disclaimer, right? Supplements are, at best, the icing on the cake. You absolutely have to nail your training, your sleep, your nutrition first. They don't make up for a poor foundation. And always, always choose products tested by third parties like Informed Sport or Labdoor so you know what's actually in them.
Okay, foundation first. Test products. Got it. So top tier, strong evidence. What are the definite yes supplements?
Creatine is probably number one. Solid evidence for supporting short, high-intensity burst and for muscle strength gains. Then, caffeine. It doesn't magically give you energy, but it reduces your perception of effort and fatigue so you can push harder for longer. And then you have buffers, like sodium bicarbonate.
Right. Bicarb helps with that lactic acid burn during intense efforts.
It helps buffer the acid buildup, yeah. But there's an interesting potential long-term benefit, too. Taking it before intense exercise seems to boost a signaling molecule called PGC1A during recovery. This hints that it might actually enhance training adaptations over time, especially those peripheral ones, like improving your lactate threshold, not just an acute boost.
Interesting. So maybe helping you adapt better long-term. What else is top tier?
Beta-alanine. This one works differently. You take it consistently, and it builds up muscle carnosine levels over weeks. Carnosine is another natural buffer inside your muscles. So beta-alanine helps delay fatigue during sustained high-intensity work. And finally, dietary nitrate, usually from beetroot juice or concentrates.
Ah, yes, beetroot. Very popular in endurance circles. What's the verdict?
It can work, especially for recreational athletes. It seems to lower the oxygen cost of exercise, makes you more efficient, and can increase time to exhaustion. But, and this is a big but, the effect is much smaller, almost disappears in highly trained, already very efficient athletes.
Okay, so maybe helpful if you're starting out or moderately trained, but I thought there was a catch with nitrate and adaptation.
There is. That's the crucial detail we found. Because nitrate can make the exercise feel a bit easier by reducing that oxygen cost, it might actually blunt some of the metabolic stress within the muscle. And that stress is part of the signal for your body to adapt and get fitter long term. So it's a potential trade-off. Perform slightly better today, but maybe adapt slightly less over months of training.
Okay. That complicates the decision. Let's move to the mixed evidence or recovery-focused category, BCAAs. Still popular.
Branched-chain amino acids. The evidence is pretty clear now. They're unlikely to actually improve performance. You won't run faster or lift more just by taking them. However, there is some decent evidence they might reduce post-exercise muscle soreness DOMS and maybe lower some markers of muscle damage. Moderate effect size there.
So maybe helps with feeling less sore, but doesn't make you faster.
Okay.
Omega-3s. Fish oil.
Similar story for performance. Highly unlikely to boost performance directly, unless maybe you're deficient, or perhaps in older adults where there might be some muscle signaling benefits. But, like BCAAs, they probably do help a bit with muscle soreness and maybe restoring range of motion after hard exercise. Small to moderate effect.
And vitamin D.
Well, if you're deficient, fixing that is crucial for normal muscle function and strength. Absolutely. Supplementing if you're not deficient, it might slightly reduce markers of muscle damage after really tough exercise like creatine kinase. But interestingly, it doesn't seem to prevent the actual loss of strength that follows that damage.
Subtle distinction there. What about HMB, the muscle-related one?
HMB. The research suggests maybe some small strength gains, but primarily in people who are completely new to training. For athletes already training, it might offer a tiny benefit for gaining lean mass, but only if their protein intake is too low, like under 1.6 grams per kilo per day. If you're eating enough protein already, HMB probably won't do much.
Okay, good context. Let's clear out the bottom tier then. Low or unproven efficacy.
L-carnitine often gets marketed for fat burning and endurance. Generally doesn't can out for athletes. Positive effects seen in patients with specific artery diseases don't really translate. Citrulline. Maybe very small improvements in things like reps to failure or power output in strength training, but likely marginal at best, low return.
And the really hyped ones. Ketones, CBD, THC.
Ketone esters or salts. Despite the hype and cost, the research is pretty consistent now. Taking them acutely or chronically does not seem to improve endurance performance. Time trials, time to exhaustion, no benefit shown. And cannabinoids, CBD, THC, highly unlikely to help performance or recovery. In fact, THC is more likely to impair performance.
Okay, so the scorecard is pretty clear then. A few proven players, mostly around buffering or fatigue perception, and a lot of noise.
That sums it up well. We've seen high-intensity training, even microdoses like VILPA, are incredibly time-efficient for fitness. We know structuring training strength endurance might give a slight edge for strength. And foundational things like iron status, measured by ferritin, are non-negotiable. Then yes, a very short list of supplements with solid backing.
Which brings us to that final provocative thought, building on the data. You pointed out that even for the proven stuff, like caffeine or sodium bicarbonate, when they do blinded studies, the placebo effect is responsible for a significant chunk of the benefit, like 25% of the performance gain observed.
Yeah, the belief effect. It's real, it's measurable. Around a quarter of the performance boost in some of those studies wasn't from the substance itself, but from the expectation. So for you, the listener, once you've truly optimized the fundamentals, the training, sleep, nutrition, recovery, the hard stuff, and the science says a proven supplement gives maybe a small few percent physical edge, you really have to consider how much of that final gain is actually belief.
And if belief itself accounts for, say, 25% of the benefit from these proven aids, and belief is free, can you actually leverage that confidence, that placebo power, as a performance tool itself? Once you've done all the other work, is the final piece psychological? Something to think about next time you're psyching yourself up for a tough effort.